All right, I'm back. Again, just when it comes to compliance, I tend to err on the side of being overly cautious. So just again here with the disclosure, I'm a professional trader for T3 Trading Group. I'm an associated member of T3 Trading Group, which is an SEC registered broker-dealer and member of FINRA/SIPC. All of my trades are placed through T3 Trading Group. You should carefully consider whether trading is suitable for you in light of your own financial condition. And once again, here is the position disclosure. I've got a bunch of longs on into this gap up. So hey, good start to the week for me. Let's see if this market can actually hold that, because this market has been absolutely nuts. And you guys here who are joining for this week, you could not have joined at a crazier time. Look at this this is a pre-market chart for the SPYs. We have access to trading from 4 a.m. to 8 p.m. through our software. As you can see here, this market just really took another leg higher on a little pre-market bull flag continuation. So as of right now, the market is set for a gap up of 1.6% for the S&P. Qs here are gapping up 2%. IWM is gapping up 1.8%, 1.9%. So we got a really solid gap up here. Let's go over to our daily chart. So daily chart, you can just see, look, Thursday, Friday last week. I've been trading professionally since 2010. Thursday, Friday last week was some of the craziest price action I have ever seen over the course of my trading career. Just a real quick recap, because we don't have a ton of time. Thursday, the CPI number came out. The CPI number came out hot. It's been one of the most important factors overall for this market. And we immediately traded down huge on it. Huge on it. We were looking terrible. But our extension rules came into play. The market started to get very extended here to the downside. And this is going to be more stuff for an afternoon meeting than a morning meeting when we have more time. One of the ways in which I measure extension in the marketplace is where your stock is trading versus the space between the 8 and 21 EMA. The space between the 8 and 21 EMA is what I consider to be general technical equilibrium for the marketplace. So when I've got the market trading down at 345 with the 80 EMA, and this is Thursday, at 348 versus 364, that's a large degree of extension. Generally, this calendar year, anytime that the market gets beyond $10 away on the daily chart from the 80 EMA is generally when you can begin to look at counter trend trades. I came into a game plan that I told here everybody in the virtual trading floor on that day. Before the CPI number came out, I put bids out in a lot of stocks 3 to 5% out of the money from where we closed on Wednesday. In case the CPI number came out bad and we got a massive flush down, I could get filled on some of those bids. Long story short, that's exactly what happened. The degree of the upside move on Thursday surprised me. I think it surprised everybody. But we have rules in place for reward maximization, so I held positions throughout the entirety of the day. Thursday was just insane. Friday, we gap up just to pretty much have the opposite. Maybe not quite as big of a day as Thursday, but just a massive day. We gap up, sell off, fill the gap, not the end of the world, and just give continuation. There was not like a buyer to be found pretty much in this grind down that we experienced all day on Friday. And by the time we closed on Friday at lows, things were looking really bad. This year has been hallmarked by weak Fridays. It's crazy. I don't know what the statistics are now off the top of my head, but I remember as we got like halfway through the year, I think there had only been 2 or 3 green Fridays the entire year, and that has just been a trend that's really continued. The market has been continuously selling off pretty much every Friday. People have been afraid to hold risk over the weekend. And what I was saying on Friday as we were closing really bad was, wow, this doesn't look good. We had this incredible day. Part of that was probably a short squeeze based on the data that we're looking at, but with this incredible day, you want to see at least one day of follow through, and I know on the afternoon meeting on Thursday we analyzed other days this year that were like this, and all of them led to at least one day of follow through until Friday of this time around here, Friday last week. Friday last week we sold off, closed at lows, not looking good. And what I was saying was Monday is really going to matter. If we get bought right back up on Monday and we get the all clear sign again, fine, let's see if we can get some follow through. Otherwise, this is a pretty bearish candle and we're not looking good. What I really want to see today is the area of, if you're bullish, the area of like Thursday's high to I guess Thursday's close, I should say, to Friday's open kind of get taken out. Like this 366 to 368 on the upside is really important for us to take out. And then on the downside, you're basically looking at Friday's low and then Thursday's low for just continued weakness. The type of gap that we're having today is what's called a common gap. We're having a common gap up in the market. Common gaps do tend to get filled. So again, we're gapping up right now, 1.6% in the S&P off of this close. And you can see here going to the small time frame, we closed around 357.60 in the SPYs. We're set to open up around 363.40 or so. We're going to open up again using the same way that I measure extension on the daily chart that I just briefly explained. That also applies on small time frame charts like a 5-minute chart. So, these moving averages here are going to be opening up at, 359 and change. We're going to be opening up at 363.30. The biggest thing that I want to see this morning is how this small time frame upside extension gets satisfied. We could see an opening squeeze off the open, somewhat similar to the squeezy price action that we saw on Thursday when the market kind of broke out of this consolidation at about 11 a.m. That could come in. I would call that a lower probability situation. Most of the time, these types of gaps see some sort of backing and filling into the market. So again, what I want to see off the open is, do we fully fill this gap? It's such a big gap that I would put that at a little bit unlikely. Do we go sideways here, let these moving averages catch up? That would actually be a very bullish situation. Or is there some sort of in between where we price correct back down a little bit, these moving averages catch up, we pivot, and then if we put in a pivot low more into equilibrium, does that lead to new highs? If that leads to new highs, that would also be a very bullish situation. So broadly for off the open here today, I'm not looking to be extremely aggressive. I've got longs coming on, coming into today's trading session. Right as I was starting the orientation, I actually got filled on the offer in a couple of names. I sold a little bit of Shopify, Apple, Snap, kind of going right into that as that market had that little break of the 5-minute pre-market bull flag that I just kind of showed you guys. And I'm a little bit more into this gap up here, kind of in profit-taking mode on long strings that I still have on, than I am looking to do a whole bunch of new things until I've got further confirmation from the price action on this upside extension. So that's kind of what I'm looking at from a big picture. Again, so big picture game planning. If let's say you're coming in flat today, I think you just want to be a little bit cautious off the open, not too aggressive off the open today, to see what kind of signals that you're able to get from this small time frame opening extension on the gap up. Going over to individual stocks that I have on my list. So on days where the market is potentially set to open up in a tricky area, one of the things that I want to pay attention to, there's a couple of things I want to pay attention to, but I want to pay attention to stocks that are in play. A company that had an earnings report or an analyst upgrade or downgrade, those stocks can move independently to what the market is doing. So if the market's opening in a spot and I'm viewing that as tricky, I could look at, say, Bank of America. Bank of America reported earnings. And again, you guys who are joining here for the open house picking a hell of a week, because not only did we have like two of the craziest days I've ever seen between like Thursday and Friday last week, but we're also really kicking into earnings season this week. We had some of the banks begin to report on Friday, then we had Bank of America report today. We can talk about this more in the afternoon meeting because, again, we just have time constraints here before the market's going to open. This earnings season is a really interesting one and a really important one. And the last earnings season, the expectations were just so low going into last earnings season that stocks that were missing performed better than what they do historically when they miss on earnings. And what we want to see as a team, I've been talking about this last week, is if that same thing happens this earnings season. Because again, we're in an area here where sentiment is awful. So if these companies are able to do in line on expectations, they might be able to perform on that, let alone if they beat. And again, that last earnings season, we saw that companies missed performed even better than they typically do. So far, so good with these earnings reports. The bank reports from Friday didn't look bad to me, though a lot of them, kind of sold off a little bit anyway. just because the market was so weak. Like you can see Wells Fargo gapped up real big. They sold it off closing on lows. I attributed a lot of that to just the broader market weakness. And now Bank of America came out with what I thought was pretty solid numbers this morning. I think you can look to be long, and this is starting to get away from us also a little bit because the market's continued, but I think you can look to be long broadly Bank of America versus 32.50. So that is on my list today. Another name that's potentially in play today is APPS. This thing got a buy initiation from one of the sell-side analysts with a $24 price target. I think it was Bank of America. Not that it really doesn't matter, though. So I'm looking at $14 here as a continuation level for APPS. Normally, I would not love this chart. Normally, I do not love buying stocks kind of that are downtrending into their equilibrium area. But what negates that potentially kind of is that upgrade. It puts it in play. $14 is a little bit of a daily resistance level. So that would be a spot that I think that you could look at. Of the names that were in play that I saw that had news this morning or upgrades, downgrades, earnings, those are the only two that really interested me. So let's actually look at just kind of other names broadly. So usually what I want to look at almost every single day, I'm looking at the FANG stocks, take a quick look at energy stocks, which have been super important this year, take a quick look at financials, which are important right now, just especially with earnings season going on, and kind of some of the growth stocks. So let's start with FANG a little bit. When it comes to these FANG names, I want to see the degree to which they retraced Thursday's up move on Friday. And broadly, and this could go back to, I know I was talking with Sebastian a little bit in the chat before the market opens, this could apply to anything. I'll look at this forward starting to go also. Like one of the things, Sebastian brought up this forward already in the chat as an idea to pay attention to. I love that this forward here didn't pull back a very large percentage of Friday's move, and then it's set to open up pretty much right at a level. So forward is actually on my list for continuation through yesterday's high. Since I've been chatting with you guys, it's already gotten above it. So you could potentially look to go long forward versus Friday's high of $11.85. But really the reason why I'm bringing this up is we're looking at FANG stocks right now. What degree of Thursday's up move was retraced on Friday is important. This forward looks so good because it retraced such a small amount of Thursday's up move on Friday. You can see Apple is kind of in between. I wouldn't call it like the strongest out there. I wouldn't call it the weakest if you compare it to like Nvidia or AMD. AMD sold off a lot of Friday's up move on Thursday. This has been a really weak chart. So this Apple looks good to me. I like the degree to which it's gapping up. There's a little bit of news out on Apple this morning, but I don't think it's significant to be market moving. I'm paying attention to Apple 142.50. I want to see what it looks like at 142.50. There could be a trade to the long side there if it's no longer extended on that small time frame and it looks right. So that Apple looks good. Amazon, on the other hand, this Amazon really pulled back too much on Friday, so I'm probably not looking at this too much. The level that I really want to see Amazon get back above is like 112.50, but this pullback on Friday was so brutal. And it was very weak Thursday morning also. This is probably not one of the ones I'm paying as much attention to. Microsoft, which had been very weak, was also, I think this was like the first one to go green on Thursday, which was notable. And then the percentage it pulled back on Friday here was not the end of the world. For Microsoft, I'm paying attention to 235. If it breaks 235 right off the open, I'm probably not going to be involved. The small time frame extension I was just referring to with the market is probably going to be too much. But 235 for Microsoft is the spot that I'm paying attention to. Netflix, I love it. I love how this Netflix has been trading. This Netflix looks phenomenal. The market got destroyed in September. This thing just went sideways. There's been a big level in this thing on the support side around 217. It breached that with broader market weakness, which really just shakes people out. As it recaptured it, it makes it even easier for the stock to go up. Thursday, it traded really well. Friday, it barely pulled back at all. So for Netflix, I am paying attention to a few spots. Paying attention to 235, which it's almost there right now, 240, and then 247 is really the big breakout of this bigger consolidation that it's been in. So Netflix is on the list also. So FANG names really Apple, Microsoft, Netflix, kind of my favorite in the space right now. And honestly, this Meta looks okay. Look at this, Meta's already almost back up to levels. 130 would be the spot to pay attention to in Meta. Very hard to buy right into this ADMA in a weak stock, but let's see what that can do. There's another one, probably not taking it off the open, but if the market shows me it's digesting and filling the extension from the common gap, Meta 130 looks decent to me, whereas Amazon pulled back a little bit too much. Google is kind of somewhere, not as good as Apple, not as bad as Amazon. Google $100 is really a key spot. So that's been a level that I've kind of consistently been paying attention to. That's our FANG names. Energy stocks. Energy's been a great trade. We had called out a long versus the low on October 11th. That trade has just continued to play out. Pulled back maybe a little bit more than you would want it to on Friday. Energy, I broadly want to see recapture 82.50. One of the best sector of the year. This is one we just need to continue to pay attention to. It's hard not to like the energy stocks. Financials, again, let's pay attention to financials just because they're kicking off earnings season right here. I don't love this XLF chart. I don't love this XLF chart. I'm more interested in some of the ones that have reported, again, like Bank of America, maybe 30 versus 32.50 today. And then finally would be taking a look at some of the growth stocks. For the most part, the growth names traded the worst Thursday, Friday. You can point to like a SoFi. We just talked about, let's see what percentage of Friday's up move some of these stocks retraced to get an idea of strength. It's probably going to be pretty much only growth stocks that you'll see were so weak that they retraced all of Thursday's move or even broke new lows on Friday. And you can see that SoFi did that. You can look at ARK. ARK retraced almost all of Thursday on Friday, made new lows today. For the most part, these names are not path. It's another one. This Tesla's been absolute trash, though it's so extended to the downside that maybe it's due for an oversold bounce. The Tesla's been absolute trash. There are a couple though that I noted. The Shopify had incredible strength, held up incredibly well on Friday. So I've got Shopify on my list today for continuation through like $26.50 to $27. It's at $27.15 right now. So I got Shopify on that list. Coursera was kind of another one, trades a little bit thin. $12 is a clear resistance level. I would not touch this thing below 12, but if it's breaking through 12, you could potentially look at it. We saw Roblox get hit with news right as we were starting to do that meeting. So Roblox could be another one that you could pay attention to today as potentially like a news play. Broadly, I think you got to be long versus 39 on a big picture here, so it's a lot of space. But that's another one that we can pay attention to. And then I guess just the only other thing I had written down were some of those ideas that Sebastian had posted. Ford we spoke about already. LUMN that he mentioned. I thought that this looks like a decent chart, but only if it breaks above yesterday's high for a long, so above $6.91 if the market's cooperating. And then Moderna and NVAX both got mentioned. There were negative notes that came out on the COVID vaccine producers this morning, which I thought it's kind of old news. So see if the market takes this in stride or not. But it basically just a negative note that COVID vaccine demand is coming down. So maybe Moderna, NVAX, they trade weak today, but this Moderna chart looks pretty good. So this is another one where I like the chart long above 136. Maybe it's weak because of that kind of story that's coming out. So if it never triggers 136, no harm, no foul. It doesn't matter. If the market's brushing it off and saying, hey, this is all news, and it's clearing through 136, that can also be a level that you're paying attention to. And then similar but different with this NVAX, bounced pretty nicely into the 21 EMA inside day on Friday. This NVAX you could probably trade on either side. You could go long above Friday's high or short below Friday's low. So that's all I got for you guys. Trying to talk fast here to get through stuff as fast as I can because, like I said, the second half of the morning meeting here, I always want to turn over to you guys for your ideas that we can review because honestly, a lot of time it's the ideas that you guys have that are actually making me money. So I'm going to scroll up here into the VTF to about 9 a.m. To see what has been posted. The first thing I'm seeing here is from Paul G at 9:03, bringing up XLE, which we discussed already. Again, just such a leading sector here, and ExxonMobil is, I guess, the name that he's looking at. So Exxon had an inside day. I think that this Exxon you could look to get started versus yesterday's low, to the long side, just off the relative strength, off the market gap up. Maybe this backs down a little bit as the market pulls in because of the type of gap that we're having. but I think that your idea is wrong on Exxon if it's breaking below yesterday's low. So I like Exxon versus yesterday's low or the momentum trade. And for the most part, these energy names have not been really momentum trades as much as they are building in, buying versus a level type of trades. But your momentum trade is like 102 on the upside. So yeah, ExxonMobil looks really good. I guess real quick, Oxy, Warren Buffett name. Every time this thing's getting down to like $60, it seems like he's kind of buying more stock. I don't love that candle from Friday. I think that the Exxon chart actually looks better at this point. Apache's been a go-to for me, but I don't love this Apache chart. You can look to build in Apache versus Friday's low or versus this pivot low down here on the 12th. But your momentum trade here in Apache is probably like 42 quarter on the upside. So it's just a couple energy names. Sure, bringing up On. So we saw that On got initiated with a buy from one of the banks, and Wolf also got initiated. So we're seeing some of these like not as mainstream semiconductors having a lot of people look at them recently. Not as much. AMD, Nvidia we know have been very weak. Intel has been disgusting. But yet this Wolf has been kind of very different and has been trading like really well. So I saw that both of these got buy initiations. I don't love the chart. I just don't love the chart. I think that this retraced too much of Friday's move, like Wolf as an example here, even though it is an inside day. I don't like the percentage that it retraced, and that they kind of broke down out of their consolidations, that they're kind of trending lower. They failed at their ADMA. So you could have these on the radar because of their initiations. I mean, look, you should have semis on the radar. One of the things I didn't get to talk about in my portion of the meeting, but I should have mentioned it for the guests that are here. I think that the team members are all well aware of this. But the keys to this market this year has been paying attention to the dollar, paying attention to bonds, paying attention to the VIX, and paying attention to, there's been two real leaders out there that it seems like the whole market follows through with what they're doing. One is the IWM, the Russell, and two is the semiconductors. So many times this year we've seen, if it looks like there's going to be a rally and the IWM's participating, that rally fails. Or if the market is not rallying and the IWM starts to go up, then the whole market kind of begins to rally. So we really, even though I have a position in NVIDIA right now, and I really do not like how these semiconductor charts look after Friday, we have to pay attention to them. Just such an important leader for the market kind of broadly. And again, the IWM. And usually I'm looking at, SOXL as a leveraged ETF. I like to trade that a lot. A lot of people on the team here do, but kind of just as, an ETF for the space, or obviously you can be looking at SMH. But I'm really constantly I'm looking at this Intel, which that Intel chart is actually very interesting. This is very interesting. I didn't look at this morning. This is the best looking semiconductor chart I see out of all of them, based on the pullback on Friday's move versus Thursday and this tight little inside day. I think this Intel actually looks really good above yesterday's high. If this thing starts breaking yesterday's high, it's also starting to clear out of this brutal descending channel that it's been in. I think you can look at Intel above yesterday's high, 2663. I like that even more than I like Wolf and On that got the initiations. But I'm looking at Intel, I'm looking at AMD, I'm looking at NVIDIA as leaders to see if they're deteriorating or giving any sort of continuation. So it's from Sharir on and Roblox. Roblox we looked at, and yeah, for sure, very notable with some of these names. I mentioned the weakness in the growth stocks, but you can't forget that some of them have very high short floats. So even though those were weaker Thursday and Friday, there is a scenario where they're actually stronger today, and the short float just leads to just kind of big up moves and continuous buying. And that's why I've got like some of the stronger ones on my list also, like that Shopify that I mentioned. Jerry bringing up Bank of America, which we looked at. Also bringing up LW and WTI. This LW chart is continues to be phenomenal. I know you've brought this up a few times already last week. So maybe you're already in this on that break of like that 83 or whatever that I think I mentioned. Looks great. Inside day on Friday, super strong. You could look to be long versus Friday's low or for continuation through Friday's high. I'd probably be a little patient on the execution off the open, but it looks great. WTI building out a wedge pattern here with an inside day. This is another one. You could look at this WTI above $7.31 above Friday's high for continuation. And please, guys, please call these things out as you're seeing them approach the level. I'm not going to throw the alert out for WTI here because I'm trying to get through as much information this morning as I can. But Jerry, if you see WTI approaching that, 731, please just give a shout here into the VTF like I know you do. Sebastian on CS. I don't like trading these ADR banks very much. I do think that we need to pay attention to the CS. I think it's very notable that weekend, basically, where everyone was talking about how CS is the next Lehman, is the actual bottom on that Monday. I kind of thought that was going to happen. I didn't trade it because I don't like to trade them. Yeah, pay attention to it, I guess, above yesterday's high. There could be a trade there. It's not the bank that I want to trade. I do not like these foreign banks that are ADRs and kind of tend to be pretty gappy and then have small ranges intraday for us. Obviously, the range for CS here has picked up a little bit just because of all the news that's been going on. So there could be a trade here above $4.58, but it's probably not going to be one that I'm involved in. Great piece of information from Millerbot. I was just chatting about how much I love the Netflix chart. They got earnings after the close tomorrow. So as we go into earnings season, you really need to know if you're trading anything. When I just sold some Amazon, you really need to know if you're trading anything, where the earnings date is on that trade. If you're looking at a swing trade or whatever, you don't want to accidentally hold something into earnings season. So very important to know that. Cold smoke, bringing up AAL. Yeah, I think that these airlines actually look pretty good. I was looking at LUV this morning, and I forgot to mention it, or forgot to write it down. Maybe it was somebody else's idea. I don't even remember. I think this LUV looks great above 33.25. That's a level. We had Delta wow, Delta's above Friday's high now. Delta Friday morning came out with some really solid news, towards their earnings report. I think it was guidance ahead of the report, not the actual report. I don't exactly remember. Gapped up huge on it. So the airlines look solid. You're bringing up American here. I think American looks good also. A little bit extended. I'd be careful through 1350 off the open, just because of the degree of the gap to the upside. Be a little bit careful with it off the open, but watch it. The airlines broadly look solid here. You could look at the Jets ETF as well. This Jets ETF has a bit of a breakout through like 1630. It looks like this market's actually just ripping right now. I just sold some Shopify. The shop just ripped. Oh, the market opened. Wow. All right, market's open. I'm just staying on. Wow, I've never done that before. Just talked right through the open. All right, we're open. Sold some SoFi. Sold some Snap. Like I said, I'm kind of just in profit taking mode here off the open because of this degree of this gap up. Coursera's at that $12 that I mentioned in the morning meeting. Very thin right now. And Shopify's well above that 27 that I also mentioned in the morning meeting. I would be careful on chasing stock right now. I'd be real careful on chasing stock into the degree of this gap up here. We could just short squeeze, but I'd be careful. I just sold more Amazon. All right. I really need to turn off that other thing. What am I looking at? Pins. Just sold some Sumo. Just sold some more Snap. Wow, this market seems like some of these growth stocks are squeezing a little bit. Wow, it's NVIDIA. NVIDIA really ripped here off the open also. It's definitely what you want to see. Got an alert for that LUMN Ford. I wasn't able to jump in any of those. SoFi is trading terribly. This NVIDIA is ripping. Alright, I think I'm finally caught up. Just sold more Snap.